This is the Demystifying Mental Toughness podcast, hosted by David Charlton, and you're listening to this podcast to help you build your own mental toughness, so that you can support other people or your clients better. Either way, you will learn more about developing this plastic personality trait that all but guarantees that you will perform better and lead a more prosperous life. Hi there, welcome back to the Demystifying Mental Toughness podcast with your host, David Charlton. And again, I'm joined by my colleague, Gerard Fitzgerald. Today, we're going to talk about cricket or a cricketer, and which is quite timely as the cricket season's starting to hot up there now and the weather's warming up slightly. The IPL's in full swing as well at the moment, where there's been some great highlights. And so on this topic, as I say, we're going to talk a little bit about cricket, but in all honesty, it does venture off into other team sports as well, be it football, rugby, hockey, netball. So we're going to present a 12-year-old cricketer here, Amir, who's a leg spinner. Now, Amir has some issues in that at the culture of his club, pace bowling is a big thing. So as a leg spinner, he's not sure whether he's going to play week to week, and that can have an impact on himself and the way he approaches the nets and so on. Also, the weather plays a part in selection, the pitch does, and the communication from coaches can be a little bit indifferent. All of this then creates some problems for Amir, which Gerard's going to go on and talk about.
Thanks, David. I'm so happy you said that other sports, because it would be very ironic for an Irish sports psychologist to talk about cricket when we don't really engage with cricket. We're getting better. We're getting there. I think we beat Bangladesh there a few months back in a warm-up. So, but it would be a bit harsh to hear my thoughts on it. But if you think about the issues at play, the sport is irrelevant. So the inconsistency of when I'm in, when I'm out is really starting to affect Amir. You know, he may be starting to take the non-selection selection quite personally. Oh, I'm good this week, I'm not good that week. He might start to feel ignored or disheartened by certain situations. He might think my style of bowling really suits this over. Why aren't I in here or against this team? And he starts that conflict. And if there's poor communication there, how do I communicate my issue if their communication is a bit bad to me, even though it's probably both. If we be very honest, the young person isn't good at communicating their frustrations, and again, the psychosocial side of it all. How's this bringing it home? You're frustrated on the pitch, you're frustrated with training. You're going to show frustrations at home, especially as a 12-year-old kid. Your motivation is low. You probably, like we alluded to last week, probably thinking about giving up cricket. If you've gone on a 3 or 4 game spell where you haven't been used as much as you should because the coaches think a certain style of play is needed here, you know, why should I not play? My buddies are starting to play football now, or we're gone into secondary school now. There's more sports available. We're going doing this, and he might drop out due to this perceived lack of communication from the coaches, but as well his own maybe lack of communication around frustrations and desires. So again, to talk about it again, similar to last week, we could be looking at maybe a dropout from this.
I think realistically as well, just when you're talking about the coaching side, a point for coaches here would be, especially, I was going to say the younger age, but to be fair, even a little bit older, some people can really hang on to the every word of a coach. So especially in this sort of situation where there's selection difficulties, they're just looking for that one word of hope that they might get selected at the weekend. And if they hear it, in their mind, they can get really fixated on that. Great, I'm going to play. I'm going to play. Now, all of a sudden, if they're not chosen, then it's the end of the world. And as you say, they virtually potentially want to quit. And I suppose to a 12-year-old, they'll probably end up locking themselves in their bedroom and being quite tearful and withdrawn from their parents and things like that. So maybe again, it's something for parents to look out for.
It's funny you mentioned that when I used to play football, I used to play centre back. And when the manager used to name the team sheet, I couldn't tell you who was playing in midfield or up front. whether I was playing or not. So as soon as I heard my name, I switched off. As soon as I didn't hear my name, I switched off. And I was an adult. So you can imagine a 12-year-old's world where they think they're getting in now. Oh, I'm going to get in here now against that batsman. Here I go, and nothing. And that constant up motivation, the confident, I'm getting confident just to get slashed again and to get taken. Like, how does a 12-year-old compartmentalize that? How does that not filter off the pitch then sometimes? That level of disappointment, that level of getting motivated to get on, how does that not filter back? And then when he does get his opportunity, the fear of making a mistake creeps in again. I have to be the perfect spin bowler here. I probably need to get this guy out. Probably need to do something here so to show my coaches they were wrong for sitting me down for 10 overs. So you might end up being either too reckless or too cautious. Nothing will ever be good enough unless you bowl the perfect six balls. So now you're dealing with loads of different areas without dealing with the main the area of communication. How do we foster something that we can help Amir? How do we do something that can help him better decisions? How can we do better by Amir that he can feel comfortable with the chance he gets instead of feeling the pressure from the chance he gets?
Yeah, and that's a real challenge, isn't it? Because essentially, again, regardless of the sport, if your identity is wrapped up in you being a success at the weekend when you play your cricket or your football, rugby, whatever it is, and you don't get chosen or you just got a bit part role, yeah, it can really, really hit you hard. So I suppose in our role there, we've got to help. And again, I suppose this is a coach's and a parent's job is to try and help the youngster or the athlete to understand that they're not defined by that selection at the weekend, and that actually, yeah, there might be a funny guy or girl, they might be intelligent, they might be, good academically at various different things, and yeah, you've just got to try and keep banging that drum about their strengths essentially. And what other tips would you hand out?
Well, just to further on that one is you're looking to bolster the young person's psychological flexibility. You want to separate the selection. The selection isn't a judgment of your talent. It's basically the coach is making a tactical decision. So, you know, taking away the selection away from your self-worth. At the moment, Amir ties up him playing with how good I am. So getting the psychological flexibility with the young person to separate that the coach's decisions are based on tactics, not talent. They're trying to make the best decision they think for the team, not for you as an individual. So it's got no bearing as you as a player. It's got no bearing as your abilities as a spin bowler. However, we went with this tactical decision. I mentioned it earlier, not in today, but with you outside of this. Joe Hart at Manchester City. At the time when Pep Guardiola came into Manchester City, Joe Hart was England's number one. No one could understand why Pep Guardiola cut him out from the team. He wasn't a footballing playing goalkeeper. It had nothing to do with Joe Hart's talent. He was one of the best goalkeepers in the world at the time. So trying to get the young person to understand that it's not about me, it's about a coach. And then tying in with that then is the old classic control the controllables. You can't control the talent that the coach going, I want Amir now. But you can control your attitude, your work rate. When you do get that chance, you present yourself the best possible way you can present yourself. You're not going on sulking. You're not going on trying to make a massive difference. You're just going on to play the best of your ability. And what does that look like? It looks like with how much effort I put in. It looks like with how much competence, communication, attitude that I show when I'm giving my chance. Not all the things I can't control, like the perfect leg spin ball that's gonna edge someone. I don't know. As you can tell, my terminology isn't the best with cricket, so I apologize to any cricket lovers out there.
I think there's a reality there where you talk about the controllables that a mentally tough or a mentally robust person, and there's not that many children like really highly mentally tough. They're a little bit sensitive, so the mentally tough person will be able to do that. But the more sensitive the person, then the less likely they are able to do that. So for me, I think what a real skill for a coach in that respect is really trying to put their head in the shoes of the leg spinner or the goalkeeper, if it was a Joe Hart situation, and really ensure that the communication is on it, and they're not trying to sort of brush things under the carpet and select teams and then just by text message or by WhatsApp message really try to help the player understand. Otherwise, they're going to build a big picture in their head and their mind's just going to be in overdrive every time they play. And as you say, the likely result is, right, I'm just going to quit the sport and go somewhere else or play on my PlayStation or Xbox, which would be like really sad. Yeah, so we've given our tips there. Look, Gerard, I've really enjoyed these 4 episodes, and for the listeners, for the viewers, please do get in touch if you've enjoyed this little batch of 4. I'll be joined for another 4 episodes with another colleague, Colin, starting next week, where we'll look more at individual sports, again, the youth sport side of things. If you want Gerard back on the show, please do drop us an email or get in touch via social media. Email address is info@sport-excellence.co.uk. Have a great week. If you enjoyed this episode of the Demystifying Mental Toughness podcast with David Charlton, do check out my website, sport-excellence.co.uk, and my online sports psychology resources. The Sport-Excellence website has essential resources for anyone looking to build their own mental toughness or the mental toughness of their athletes or teams, or if you want to achieve peak performance more often or optimal functioning. The Sport Excellence website has everything you need to keep moving forward and thrive. So go on, head over to sport-excellence.co.uk to find out more.